today in Rich in Relationship. We're going to talk about why you feel like you're putting in so much effort and not getting any results or even acknowledged. What if instead of competing or feeling unappreciated, you and your wife could build something greater together? Marriage isn't about winning or losing. It's about building a future together. It's about winning in the game of life. And to win in the game of life, you need a partnership. Welcome to another episode of Rich in Relationship. I'm your host, Rich Heller, and today we're going to talk about the real marital contract, building each other up. And I want to just footnote that by saying I know some of you feel like you spend your whole life building your partner up and they're not building you up. All right. And so I'm not advocating for that. The marital contract is about building each other up. It can't be it's a contract. It's not one-sided, all right? If it's one-sided, what do? You go join a labor union and negotiate for a better contract. Some people call that separation. Some people call that counseling. Some people call that coming to Rich in Relationship and getting help with your marriage, which a lot of people do. And we have a huge success rate, 90 to 95%. Couldn't resist saying that. But you need to know I'm doing this podcast because I know what works. So have you ever felt like I'm doing everything and she still isn't happy? What if your marriage didn't have to feel like a constant struggle? What if instead of competing or feeling unappreciated, you and your wife could build something greater together, something that honors both of your strengths? And I'm not just talking about in the marriage, I'm talking about in your individual lives. In today's equal society, men and women get together in a relationship. They develop themselves as individuals, their own individual interests, pursuits, hobbies, professional careers, or whatever it might be that their interest is building up the family for a time. I was a stay-at-home dad for a while. Whatever the interest is, we're allowed to pursue it individually. And in order to do that, we build up the relationship and one another. That is the marital contract. It is not one person doing all the work, constantly compromising, or rigid role expectations. I want to be really clear. I talk about the brain and testosterone and the brain and estrogen, but just so you know, I clean, I cook, I've changed diapers, I do change diapers, I nurture. My wife leads. She has goals. She has places she wants to go in life. Men's qualities are not uniquely men's. Women's qualities are not uniquely women's. The difference is a testosterone brain and an estrogen brain might be stronger in certain areas, but it doesn't mean you can't cross over. It doesn't mean that you can't fulfill different roles. And are you good at it? I mean, it turns out I was actually pretty good at changing diapers. It turns out I'm actually a pretty good cleaner. It turns out I'm not a bad cook. But interestingly, not as good a cook as my wife when she sets her mind to it. But you don't need to know all that. If you're good at something and it's easy for you to do, the chances are that's something you need to develop in yourself. And what I'm telling you is, even though there are distinctly feminine strengths and distinctly masculine strengths, when it comes to what we do in the world, there's very little that is distinctly woman and distinctly man. The businesses that do best are the businesses that focus on the strengths of the participants. Businesses that try to pigeonhole someone in a job that they're not good at and abuses and beats them emotionally into doing that job even when they suck at it, those businesses are not sustainable. Well, guess what? Neither is your marriage. If one or both of you is doing something that you're not good at, that's not sustainable. And if that's been going on for a while, it's both of your responsibility to change it. Not just the person who's stuck in that role, but the person who's allowing that to go on. When we build each other up, we acknowledge what's not working, what we're not good at. You know what I'm not good at? I'm not as good at building detailed relationships with our children as my wife is. But you know what I'm really good at? I'm really good at helping them identify how to work through something they're really stuck on. I'm really good at specific situations. And so we apply those strengths differently. The trick is, first, you got to get that when you married each other, you bought into, I'm going to help you to be the best you. I'm going to help you to be your real self being the person that you are becoming. That person that you're becoming who represents the ultimate manifestation of all your strengths, skills, and innate abilities, that represents the fulfillment of all your values and principles. I'm helping you to become that person. And you're helping me to become that person. And I'm helping you to become that person without any expectation of acknowledgement or reward. That's a tall order. And vice versa. That's an ideal. By the way, that's an ideal, right? And the problem with ideals is we almost never attain them. And so we will constantly have experiences that are short of the ideal, but it's something to work towards. Each of you has innate strengths. Ignoring them leads to conflict. Leveraging them builds momentum. Common strengths that we bring to the relationship grow the relationship. If you're a man and you're a natural problem solver, you're about stability and long-term vision, that's a strength that you bring to the relationship. If you're a woman and you're emotionally intelligent and you've mastered social connections and detail orientation, that's something you bring to the relationship. Honestly, there are some men who are more detail oriented and some women who are more big picture. This is a generalization, but whatever you are, it's what you bring to the relationship. And the trick is to stop competing, fighting, negotiating who's right, and get clear on how am I going to help her? How is she going to help me? How are we going to grow the relationship? How are we, as we grow and the relationship grows, going to support and nurture our children? When our children mature, how are we and our children going to support their children? And so on and so forth. You know what sometimes I don't talk about? Here's one that comes up. How are we going to help our parents to move on to whatever the next place is in a way that's graceful, caring, and loving, and honors how we would like to be cared for when we're in their position? Oh, let's talk about this from I love talking about relationships from the corporate perspective because there are a lot of crossovers. The corporate world, the world of business, is an abstraction of how family how family operates. And it's really interesting because in business, often people say, well, this is not family, this is business. And that's because business is a masculine abstraction of how family operates. They're trying to take the emotion out of it. There are a lot of women-led businesses that don't do that. Another podcast. The CEO who holds the vision. There's a COO who makes sure that everything functions. There's an HR leader who makes sure that the culture moves forward. There's a CFO who makes sure the money is in order. There are all these different hats that different people wear. In the business of your marriage, you want to have each of you wear the hat that's appropriate to your strengths. So take a look at the corporate model. If you're not familiar with it, go get some AI and play with it. Bump in your strengths and your husband's strengths, or your strengths and your wife's strengths, depending on who's listening, and see how they stack up to these hats in a corporation. And then start designating roles in your family as if it were a business. I'm going to be in charge of the big picture. You're going to be in charge of managing the finances. I'm going to be in charge of managing the relationships. You're going to be in charge of managing the logistics of our family, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. You will wipe out many of the power struggles by doing this because the CEO often bows to the CFO when it comes to money because the CFO has expertise, the CEO doesn't. We're going to drop attitudes like, if I don't do it, it ain't going to happen. That, by the way, is a disaster in business. It's a disaster in your family. We're also going to address the feeling that every time I try to help, she tells me I'm doing it wrong. Sometimes you are, by the way. I want you to think about the fact that there's a communication gap. Men speak about things differently than women do. Men want to help differently than women do. And So if you're leaping into something and he or she are saying, wait a minute, we need to talk about this, the chances are you're missing something. You're certainly missing the opportunity to get on the same page. If they're not agreeing with you, you may not be on the same page. You need to respect each other's domain. If she knows money and you don't, you let her manage the money. The plan for how the money gets distributed, maybe you're going to share in that together. You want to make sure there's money put away. There's an emergency fund. You want to make sure there's money for college. You want to make sure the bills get paid today. You want to make sure there's money for vacations. But if she's better at distributing the money and actually managing it, you let her do it. And you talk about it monthly. You want to delegate and trust. You don't talk about it monthly to check on them. You talk about it monthly to make sure that everything's going according to plan. Because in real life, when we create strategies, the unexpected comes up. And when the unexpected comes up in the world of finance or emotion or any other area of our life, it's worth talking about. A blueprint for a thriving partnership is built on leaning into first, getting clear on each other's strengths. Second, delegating responsibility according to strengths. Third, having a communication structure where you are engaging with one another on the fulfillment of your vision together in the different areas of strength. You're going to get, it's like having you're giving a report in a board meeting. You and your partner are on a board and you're giving each other this monthly reports on how the business of your marriage is doing. And the purpose of the reports are if something is jammed up, you get to help each other through it. You get to help each other through it with your different strengths. Because even though one partner may be better at relationships and the other one might be better at maintaining the structure of the home, the perspective that each partner brings to relationships and the structure of the home are vital to making sure that each partner delivers in those areas in a way that's satisfying to both partners. Sometimes a partner is going to be under stress. Let's say your partner loses a parent, and you might need to take on some of their job for a while. That is something you need to do willingly. That sacrifice is something you do willingly, not because it's your contract, because you love them. And because you know if you were in the same position, you would need that kind of help. Or maybe they lose someone and they need to immerse themselves in details for a while, and you allow them to do that. Living out the vision and the goals of your marriage is built on caring communication. It's built on delegation based on skills and innate abilities. It's built on checking in with each other through that communication on that delegation. It's about building trust through seeing each partner execute the shared vision in their delegated responsibilities that are built on their strengths. And there's safety that comes out of that. When you know that you can give your partner a task and that they will do it, holding your interests at heart, safety is what you begin to experience. Marriage isn't about winning or losing. It's about building a future together. It's not about winning or losing in your marriage. It's about winning in the game of life. And to win in the game of life, you need a partnership. You need to build a future together. You need to delegate based on responsibilities. You need to build each other up. Now, you remember in the beginning, I said this is an ideal. In real life, what happens is we trust and our trust is broken. And I need you to get this. Your trust will always be broken. What you do with that breach of trust is everything. If you just say, oh, well, it wasn't that bad and don't talk about it, then your trust will be broken again in that area in a bigger way. The reason why trust gets broken is because as human beings, we are not perfect. The reason why trust gets broken is we don't always communicate the boundary of that trust clearly. And so when our trust is broken, it's really important to call it out immediately. If, for example, you trusted that your wife was going to make sure that you were included in planning your birthday party for your 17-year-old girl, and she just did it without you because she assumed that was her strength and you didn't want anything to do with it, then you either failed to communicate it to her, or you failed to communicate the importance to her, or you delegated without making it clear what part you wanted to have in it. But that trust was broken because of a communication breakdown. Sometimes that trust is broken on purpose. Sometimes that trust is a passive-aggressive retaliation. for a trust you've broken, it's important to air all that out and get it all out and clean it all up so you can reestablish trust and reconfirm the boundaries of that trust so that that particular breach does not happen again. The law on breach of trust is, number one, both parties need to acknowledge what the breach was. Number two, both parties need to acknowledge their part in it. Number three, both parties need to acknowledge the needs that drove them to allow that breach of trust or engage in that breach of trust. And number four, both parties need to agree on how those needs are going to be met in the future in such a way that trust won't be broken. That's how you recontract a breach of trust on any level, whether it be your daughter's birthday party or infidelity or financial infidelity or emotional, whatever it is. It's all about breach of trust. And I want you to get that that is part of the partnership game. Trusts will be broken. And if you want to limit how trust is broken, it requires airing it out and developing understanding. And the more you do that, the less trust will be broken over time. But trust will be broken over time. And the other side of this is we started out with the example of no matter what I do, they never seem to acknowledge me. If you know that you're doing the right thing by your partner and you know that you're showing up for them and you're being supportive of them and you feel that way, there's a couple of things that might be going on. One, your love language might be words of affirmation. It might be that that's what you really need from people. And it's important to air that out. Hey, honey, I don't need to be acknowledged for everything, but I feel more cared for when people speak, affirm me, how I'm being, what I'm doing. That would be one thing. Now, the other possibility is that no matter how many words of affirmation they speak, you're not receiving it, in which case there's an old emotion or an assumption about yourself, some form of not enough. We all human beings seem to walk around with a form of not enough that needs to be addressed. And that's not your partner's fault. It's not your fault either, by the way. It's something your parents gave to you. And that's worth working out. There are a lot of ways you can do that. You can go to our website and check it out if that's something you're interested in. The next episode is we're going to go deep into this concept of synergy, which we've talked about in the episode before this one. And here we talked about how building each other up is a pillar for that synergy. We're going to talk about what that synergy is like and what the experience might be like. So stay tuned for the next episode in Rich in Relationship. And in the meantime, have a wonderful day and an awesome tomorrow.